the trustees who are here present, Ms. Maya Makanji and Nikki Webikicha, Deputy Secretary General of the ANC, who's expected, Sisin Dilega and Ndati Tandukolo Mandela and the Mandela family, Honorable Ministers, Honorable Deputy Ministers, MACs, the SANDF Directorate Defense Communications, Lieutenant General Bongani Mbata, Brigadier General Kolani Mabanga, senior officers, warrant officers, President and SG of COSATU and its leadership, the leadership of SANCO and SACP. Our veterans, Me Frene Jinwala, Me Sophie de Brain, who is expected, and other veterans here present, members of the diplomatic corps, ladies and gentlemen. It is at this point that I say, please consider yourselves protocoled while I observe you. It is a great honor for us to convene this event with the African National Congress, the organization in which Madiba cut his political teeth, which he served so long, from which he learned so much, and which he remained a member until his passing. Our organizations share the privilege and carry the responsibility of being institutional stakeholders in Madiba's legacy. Of course, this is not the first for our organizations. Since 1999, when the foundation was established by Madiba, we have had a close working relationship. Sometimes a very good working relationship, sometimes only good. I suppose this is the nature of such relationships and an expression of a heavy burden of responsibility that we both carry. In his last years, Madiba used to tell a joke which speaks directly to this. He changed it according to his audience. But in one of these versions, it goes like this. When I die and I get to the pearly gates, they will ask me, who are you? I will say, Madiba. They will respond, where do you come from? I will say, South Africa. Ah, they will say, you are that Madiba. No, you have come to the wrong gates. You see those ones far away down there, the very warm ones, those are your gates. And he would usually pause because you'd be stunned that he's talking about his own death, and he would then conclude, but don't worry, the foundation and the ANC will be there to assist. So I guess, according to Madiba, we already know our place, Deputy President. But seriously, we have undertaken many joint projects, from working together on Madiba's presidential gifts and awards, to researching his speeches, from access to archives to collaborations on the centenary of the ANC. We value the relationship and are committed to making it work very well. Today is the end of a long, hard period of 10 days marking Madiba's passing. We have collaborated with many partners in government, civil society, and the private sector. We have engaged closely with Madiba's family. We have connected with representatives of other governments. We have shared many stories. We have laughed and we have cried. It is perhaps too early to reflect on what it all means, on what significances are. But let me offer just 3 thoughts. Firstly, we have seen demonstrated that while Madiba is gone, his legacy lives on. It lives on in the hearts and minds of millions of people, South Africans and non-South Africans. Madiba is no longer our father or our grandfather. He is now our ancestor, one who dwells within us and will continue to give us guidance for generations to come. The one who Bishop Mpumlwana described as the ancestor of hope, who will continue to give us hope when we want to despair. Secondly, as you see demonstrated in our tribute exhibition outside, Madiba's power to bring people together remains undiluted. If you stop to read the messages from all around the world, you will see an expression of many shared values and common identities. Our responsibility is to harness that sharing and that commonality for the work that awaits us. And thirdly, I'm reminded of the single primary message that Madiba conveyed to us in the last years of his life, namely that there is still much work to be done, and you will best honor me by showing your devotion to freedom by never giving up. These last 10 days have been taking something of a rest from the work we do in the trenches. A short rest to reflect, to gather our strength, to be inspired for the road that lies ahead. One of the features of these 10 days here at the Foundation has been the presence of a gun carriage which carried Madiba's body to its final resting place. It was accompanied by 2 SANDF personnel who drove the carriage on that day a year ago. Warrant Officers Duprier and De Koker, who are both here with us this evening. I think they're sitting there. Welcome. We're very grateful for the collaboration with the SANDF and have enjoyed the enthusiasm and discipline of these 2 soldiers and their superior officers. This evening we will be acknowledging our indebtedness to them formally. We are taking great care about this because we intend to talk to the SANDF soon about coming to an agreement on the most appropriate permanent home for the gun carriage. I think you'd all agree with me that the Foundation's Center of Memory is a beautiful home for it. But the fact that you are not as enthusiastic as the audience worries me, because the senior officers are going to go back and say, the audience didn't really respond well. At this point, you should clap hands and say, yeah, but... So based on your response alone, I think I'll go down a bit and say that don't give us the gun carriage, give us something else that can remind us of the same, because the audience was not as enthusiastic as I thought. Thank you for joining us this evening. I trust that you will hear Madiba speaking to us, that you will leave this place inspired to tackle the enormous challenges confronting us. And I'd like to, at this point, just inform you how the proceedings are going to go. We'll first have the ceremony to thank the SANDF for the partnership and their cooperation. So we're going to have Professor Njabulo Ndebele and Lieutenant General Bongani Mbata who will preside over this part of the event, and then we will then have we'll invite Berita, who would give us a couple items, musical items. We'll then invite the Deputy President to give us his lecture. So I'd like to, at this point, call on Lieutenant General Mbata and call on Professor Njabulo Ndebele. And it's my honor to call on Brigadier General Holzhausen, Sergeant Major Niemand, Warrant Officers Duprier and De Koker to come forward. I'd like to invite Professor Njabulo Ndebele to come and say a couple. First, before that, if you can please turn around for the photo op.
Salute. Attention. One face forward march.
I'd like to, at this point, request that the senior officers then depart and ask Prof to come and say a few words.
Well, I'm sure you could see that I was the odd man out there. And I didn't know whether to salute or something. But I do want to say that I don't recall in my life feeling so well protected in the presence of the general and his senior staff. It's a real delight and honor for the foundation to have had this wonderful cooperation with the South African Defence Force, and the role that they played in the funeral of our founder, Madiba. It's a pleasure for us to show a mark of gratitude for the role that they have played. As a reference was made to the gun carrier out there, I think I read somewhere on it, there's a little plaque that it looks like it will never see service again. So it looks like that being the case, Silo, it's got a good place to be at the foundation. General Mbata, thank you so much, sir, for being here this evening to participate in this ceremony. We look forward to further collaboration with you and the Defence Force. Thank you so much.
General, I would like to invite General Mbata to say a few words.
Thank you very much. His Excellency, the Deputy President, ministers present here, diplomats present here, friends, and of course the family, all protocol observed. That's a quicker way of saying hello to all of you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that. I'm not sure whether I should be sad or be happy, like I see most of you sitting here. I'm talking about an operation here. There are two major operations that the SNDF managed to conduct and and the world was shocked. One, the first one, was when we deployed in Burundi. We were told in 1 week by the president that we have to deploy in Burundi. And we managed to airlift tons of equipment and more than 1,000 men in Burundi, and we were ready to deploy and conduct operations, and we shocked the world. The second one was when we had to mobilize more than 8,000 men to participate in an operation to say the final farewell to our Commander-in-Chief. I'd like to say it's very difficult to say to the family, because our culture is blacks, you never prepare for somebody to die. But we've been working on this operation for years, because Madiba was not an ordinary man. We knew what would be expected of us. The gun carriage that you see standing outside here, it's one of the museum pieces that we'll always keep. It will never be used again. Madiba was the last one to use it. We are going to preserve it. We will look after it until the government tells us where to take it. So with those words, I want to say to you, it's really an honor for me to be standing here and representing the SNDF. I'm in charge of logistics in the SNDF. As you all know, that logistics is very difficult. Madiba's funeral was one of the largest logistical exercises that we conducted in the history of the SNDF. I remember when we had to conduct operations in doing reconnaissance around Qunu, how to get to Qunu quicker without any problems. And one of the things that we did was to check the rail line that would take us to Qunu and transport all the equipment. Together with Transnet, the exercise was conducted, and a lot of equipment was put in Qunu, and we managed to make sure that all the soldiers that were there and soldiers that were deployed all over the country were in place to make sure that the funeral went well without any hiccups. We were commended by the world. We were commended by the world. And at some time, I remember very well when it was announced that the old man has finally passed away, I was out of the country. I was in Equatorial Guinea. And we immediately had to abort the operation. And I remember when we told the hotel staff that we have to fly back to South Africa because Madiba is no more, there were comments that, is there going to be South Africa again? Because they thought that there's nothing beyond South Africa, there's nothing beyond Mandela's death. South Africa will never be there again. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to say to all of you today, thank you very much for honoring us. I'll convey the message to my principals and tell them that, yes, thank you very much. We've done our job and we've been thanked for that. Thank you very much.
Brigadier General, I wanted to salute you, but you left too quickly. So just as I was getting ready, because I'm worried that you've now declared that government will tell you, but I need to tell you that just to inform you that 4 seats that way, we have the Deputy President of the country in the audience. So he might, we have friends in high places in other countries. I just thought I should declare that we have friends in high places. It might be that. With those words, I'd like to invite Berita to come and serenade us with a couple music items.
Good evening. Such an honor to be here. My name is Berita. I am an award-winning Afro-soul artist born in Zimbabwe, but South African by music. Such an honor to be here tonight. I'll play you a couple of songs throughout the night. The first song that I'm going to play is a Xhosa song. It's a song called Sophinda Sidibane. It's a song about the death of a loved one. And this evening, I'd like to dedicate this song to the family of Utata Madiba. Delikando undiwele mehlo kaiboni likanana wasishiya ngesiqu singalindela singazakhe emva kwakhe singxengxezise sothando kuphela isigqibo sakhe noThixo ndisivumile. Nyembezi zodwa izezothando. Thandaza, thandaza mphefumulo wam. Siphinde sidibane. Thandaza, thandaza mphefumulo wam. Siphinde sidibane. Uwe Yahweh, uwe Yahweh, Yahweh. Uwe Yahweh, uwe Yahweh, Yahweh. Uwe Yahweh, uwe Yahweh, Yahweh. Oloncumo lwakhe lohlala luhlele enhlizweni zethu. Isibane sakhe sohlala siqaqamba. Isingxengxezi sesothando kuphela. Isigqibo sakhe noThixo ndisivumile. Nyembezi zodwa izezothando. Thandaza, thandaza mphefumulo wam. Siphinde sidibane. Thandaza, thandaza mphefumulo wam. Siphinde sidibane. Uwe Yahweh, uwe Yahweh, Yahweh. Uwe Yahweh, uwe Yahweh, Yahweh. Uwe Yahweh, uwe Yahweh, Yahweh. Yena uzohlala ehlele enhlizweni zethu. Yena uzohlala ehlele enhlizweni zethu. Madiba wohlala ehlele enhlizweni zethu. Yena uzohlala ehlele enhlizweni zethu. Thandaza, thandaza mphefumulo wam. Siphinde sidibane. Thandaza, thandaza mphefumulo wam. Siphinde sidibane. Uwe Yahweh, uwe Yahweh, Yahweh. Can I ask you to sing along with me? Uwe Yahweh, uwe Yahweh, Yahweh. Wow. Uwe Yahweh, uwe Yahweh, Yahweh. Sounds so beautiful. Uwe Yahweh, uwe Yahweh, Yahweh. Thank you. Uwe Yahweh, uwe Yahweh, Yahweh. Thandaza, thandaza mphefumulo wam. Siphinde sidibane. Thank you so much. Thank you. I pray that Utata Madiba could hear that Uweya Weya from heaven. I'm going to play you my last song for now. As a young person, I write all my songs for young people. And this is a song called Ibuyile Inkululeko, which means we have freedom now. And the song is basically encouraging young people to get up and enjoy the freedom that we have, because our fathers and our forefathers struggled for this freedom. Ivela inyaniso ubuza. Can I have some claps, please? Ufuna impendulo uzothi litheni ilifa lakho, iziqhamo mfondini, khawuze nazo sibone. Asambe sonke bandla isizwe silindile, ibuyile inkululeko. Asambe sonke bandla isizwe silindile, vuka kodini sudlalisa ntombi encinci, ibuyile inkululeko. Asambe sonke bandla isizwe silindile, uthukisa nje uxanduva lwakho, vila voto khawuphakama usibone, ibuyile inkululeko. Asambe sonke bandla isizwe silindile, ibuyile inkululeko. Asambe sonke bandla isizwe silindile. Thank you. Ibuyile inkululeko. Asambe sonke.
Thank you very much for that, Berita. The one thing I didn't tell you is that you never ask this audience to sing along. There are people who are seriously vocally challenged. Especially, I could hear, or rather, I could see the lips of Professor Maluleke moving. But I'm not sure what they were saying. But I'm sure he was out of tune. So next time, just ask them to clap along. Don't ask. So thank you very much for that. I think she deserves another round of applause. Thank you so much. I'd like to, at this point, ask the Deputy President and the Chairman of the Board to please move to the front. If you can please come and sit in front. General, please join them. As we reorganize ourselves, I'm now going to ask Professor Njabulo Ndebele to come and introduce our keynote speaker for tonight.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to extend greetings on behalf of the Foundation to Deputy State President and Deputy President of the African National Congress, President Cyril Ramaphosa. You are very welcome, sir, and thank you so much for agreeing to be with us this evening. And thank you to you all, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests for joining us. The Nelson Mandela Foundation has organized and participated in numerous events, gatherings, and projects over the last 10 days to mark the first anniversary of the passing of our beloved founder. I think you will agree with me that it has been moving to see demonstrated once again Madiba's power to bring people together, and for those gatherings to inspire us in the manner that he did. People the world over joined South Africans in remembering a global figure. Now, there have been even some light moments in those global rememberings. It is reported, for example, that at a recent charity event in Canada, in honor of Nelson Mandela, one Jonathan Bernier, goalkeeper for the ice hockey team, Toronto Maple Fields, was interviewed on the red carpet about his knowledge of Madiba. And this is what he said. He's one of the most known athletes in the world. And he went on to say he had a lot of impact in any kind of sport that he did. Even playing hockey. Everyone knows him, right? From being the kind of person he was off the ice and on the ice. Well, this could easily have been another kind of sign language of the kind we saw. Well, Madiba would certainly have seen these events for what they really are, which is have a good laugh. For tonight's event, the last of a series to commemorate the first anniversary of our founder's passing, we have partnered with the African National Congress. We are grateful to be able to partner in this manner with the ANC in the memory of Nelson Mandela's membership of the African National Congress. Madiba was a member of the ANC from 1944 until his passing. It shaped him politically and nurtured him over decades. In his own words, in 2008, he said, "I would be nothing without the ANC." From this comment could resonate a question many South Africans have asked, and the general asked a similar question earlier on that had been asked by others. What will our future be without Nelson Mandela? It is a question that was asked even more pointedly in his last days. How will we as a nation face the future without him? I'm certain that many in the ANC will have similarly asked, what will the ANC be like without Madiba? There is no question about the rhetorical truth of Madiba's assertion. It draws its power from the unfailing reference to his being a part of the collective, thus de-emphasizing his impact as an individual. But this rhetorical truth as it might be, might also mask something deep within it that contradicts it. The power of that contradiction comes from the fact that many of us ask what things will be like without Nelson Mandela, the person who was a leader. That very question is a recognition I would like to submit of the power we all have as individuals. Thus, the more Madiba de-emphasizes his individuality, the more his individuality is morally elevated by others who are concerned about the future in his absence. It is, after all, an individual, isn't it, who, in making his or her assertion, denies their own individuality. He or she, therefore, can never really escape from being the individual who makes the assertion, who takes a position. Thus, individuality is affirmed at the precise moment that it is denied. So, the capability to do so then has particularly marked out such people as Madiba. It marked out, similarly, Martin Luther King, marked out Mahatma Gandhi, marked out Malcolm X, marked out Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, marked out Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, marks out today the Dalai Lama, and countless other leaders who have pushed the frontiers of the human sensibility towards greater refinement. And indeed, the individual is the basic, most fundamental site of conscience, which then becomes co-created to more inclusive dimensions with others, often in organizational contexts, for the benefit of the greater human society. And that is why the most democratic of organizations and institutions always create room for dissent based on conscience. Whenever a moment of conscience arises within it, an organization must pause of necessity for deep reflection. Should an organization pass by such moments willfully or by default, it loses an opportunity to revitalize its vision and so revitalize itself. And so Madiba's Foundation is here then this evening with Madiba's African National Congress to remember together and partly to ponder together the future that led Madiba to say, I will be nothing without the ANC. With that, I want to thank the ANC for working with us to make this event tonight possible. I'd also like, in that note, to invite us to remember how Madiba ended his autobiography, The Long Walk to Freedom. This is what he said. The truth is that we are not yet free. We have merely achieved the freedom to be free, the right not to be oppressed. We have not taken the final step of our journey, but the first step on a longer and even more difficult road. The true test of our devotion to freedom is just beginning, he said. In my humble view, Deputy President, this ending compels us to consider convening a national dialogue, perhaps facilitated by his foundation in accordance with the mandate he gave it as a founder, to consider the special challenge his message presents. Such a dialogue would involve Madiba's governing party and other parties who have recently, we saw, locked in fierce contestation in Parliament. However disruptive, however discomforting and disconcerting the experience may have been, some may see in it a signal for a need for something new to emerge. It seemed the contestants were crying out without saying so for something to believe in together. And in this, none of them were completely right, none completely wrong, only that the vital points of convergence seemed difficult to discern at that particular moment. Such values of convergence may need to be rediscovered together once more to restore collective purpose to national endeavor. But tonight is significant for two other reasons. Firstly, it coincides with the 20th anniversary of the publication of that seminal work, Long Road to Freedom. Not only has it become one of the world's all-time bestsellers, it is also arguably our post-apartheid Africa's founding narrative. Later this week, the Foundation will be placing online a feature about the writing of Long Walk, which began in 1976, and the text's long journey to publication in 1994. It is not widely known that Madiba intended to write a sequel to Long Walk. Indeed, in 1998, he started the manuscript of a work provisionally titled Presidential Years, and kept working on it sporadically until 2002, when he finally ran out of steam. Here at the Center of Memories Archive, we have versions of 10 chapters from that work. I want to announce tonight that the Foundation has embarked on a project to see the completion of the presidential years as an authorized account of Madiba's presidency. The work on the manuscript is painstaking and calls for the most rigorous collaborative work. We aim to publish the work sometime in 2015. So Cyril will be under the spotlight. While Madiba, collaborative to the end, was working on the presidential years manuscript, he relied on a number of trusted advisors to offer suggestions on the drafts he was writing. It is no accident that one of those advisors, is our keynote speaker tonight, Deputy President of the ANC, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, and Deputy President of the state. It is now my pleasure to introduce him to you. Not that he needs introduction to this audience. We regard him as a friend of the Foundation's. He visited Madiba here many times. He has addressed gatherings here on invitation from us, and of course, he had a long association and friendship with Madiba. And he is certainly someone who knows what it means to keep on working. I asked him just before we started if he has not got a citizenship from Lesotho, from his always being there. But he tells me that it's not about to happen. He takes every challenge that he's confronted with and does a good job. Deputy President, as always, it is an honor to have you with us and to ask you to address us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you. Chairperson of the proceedings tonight, Tate Sello Hatang, Chairperson of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Professor Ndebele, the Mandela family. I see my sister Ndileka here, and I'm sure many others are here. The leaders of various political parties. I see General Bantu Holomisa here. I haven't seen the others. Comrade Stumo Dlamini, the president of COSATU, the second deputy president of COSATU, Comrade Losi, General Mbata, various other officers of our South African National Defence Force, Comrade Frini Jinwala. I don't know if Auntie Sophie is here yet, but I greet you and I greet all of you and members of the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress, and I recognize Minister Gwele, who is here amongst us. It is a real joy and pleasure to be amongst you. I look forward to this book that you just spoke about. Madiba and a few others of us spoke about this book and gave some thoughts and advice. And I'm hoping that in this book, Madiba will provide an answer, because I haven't seen most of it, an answer to a problem that he has left unanswered for me. And there's a bit of a void in myself in that the answer is still outstanding of how he finally solved a particular problem and challenge. And as most of us know, Madiba was the quintessential problem solver. He was, I would reckon, the best negotiator in the world, and whatever problem he was confronted with, he was able to solve. Many of you might have heard him relate this story, which to me still ended without a solution. But I am sure that he did find a solution to this problem. And he spoke about him being President of the Republic of South Africa, and particularly how each time he went to Kunu, many of the citizens of our country found their way to Kunu to go and meet him. And that is why the visitor center in Kunu was built, so that people can go and sit and converse with him once he had an opportunity to meet them. And he told this story of this lady who came from one of the villages in that part of our country and who waited almost all day. And finally, she was led into his office, and she said, "Madiba, I have a problem." And Madiba said, "What is your problem?" She said, and Madiba, introducing the issue, said, "You know, when you are President of the Republic, you deal with all manner of problems, both big and small, and very intricate." And she said, "My neighbor has stolen my chicken." And he said, "You know, Cyril, I have to deal with problems of stolen chickens." And she continued, "He has stolen my chicken." And Madiba said, "Who is this neighbor?" She mentioned the name, and Madiba, being the good problem solver that he is, had him called in because he lived nearby. And so he came, and Madiba said, "This lady says you've stolen her chicken. Is that true?" And he said, "I did take her chicken." And he said, "Where is the chicken?" And he said, "I've eaten it." And Madiba turns and he says he has eaten the chicken. But she said, "I want my chicken." And Madiba says, "How much is the chicken? Are you prepared to pay for this chicken?" He said, "Yes, I'm prepared to pay. I'll give her 25 rand right now." And Madiba says, he wants to give you 25 rand. Are you willing to accept 25 rand? She said, "No, I want my chicken." And as he was telling this story, we were interrupted somehow, as we often were, and he never told me the end of the story. So I'm looking forward to reading this book, because this void in my soul will be filled, because I do need to have an answer. I, as many of us do, we often invoke Madiba's wisdom, Madiba's approach to problems as we encounter problems. And we often ask ourselves, what would Madiba have done? And I now want to find out how he solved this problem. Because as Deputy President, I think it might happen to me one day as well, that one of you sitting here, particularly the Deputy Secretary of COSATU, who's sitting here, might present me with such a problem as we try to solve COSATU's problems. It is really an honor, and a deeply humbling honor it is to have been invited to give this lecture in the memory of the founding father of our nation and our democracy, to give this lecture in honor of Isitwalandwe Siaparangwe Nelson Mandela. And true to Madiba's own inclinations, we are not here this evening to mourn Madiba. We are rather here to remember a lot of things about him, but also to remember him and what he taught us and what he stood for. We are here to reflect on the present and in a way also deliberate on the future. From his life, we're able to deal with the present, but we are also able to use Madiba's life as a platform to look into the future. We are here to examine Madiba's legacy and ask ourselves what it is that we need to build on it. As we reflect on Madiba's life and contribution, we must heed the words spoken by Cicero in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar when he says, "Men may construe things after their fashion, clean from the purpose of the things themselves." For there is always the risk that in seeking to interpret Madiba's life and indeed his legacy, we emphasize that which serves the purposes of the present, or worse, that which seeks to advance our own interests. In doing so, there's a risk that we obscure the complexity and nuance that must necessarily form part of so rich and so profound a life. We should therefore proceed with caution, even mindful of our responsibility to remember Madiba as he really was and describe his legacy as it truly is. Nelson Mandela was one of the most remarkable people to which this continent and indeed our country has given birth to. To millions across the globe, he was a moral icon. And they saw him as a leader, but much more than that, they saw Madiba as a moral icon. And yet, as he would be the first to acknowledge, he was not without fault. And he often said, he is not a saint. He had the courage to make mistakes, and he also had the wisdom to admit his own mistakes. One doesn't often find this in leaders. Leaders don't often admit that we have made mistakes. Madiba had that courage, and that is what sets him apart from many of us who are leaders today. Though he may be one of the finest amongst us, none should deny that he too possessed of human frailty. Yet it is thanks to his essential humanity that we are able to recognize in him so much of what we seek to see in ourselves. We are able to aspire to emulate his example precisely because we can see in him a huge part of ourselves. As we seek to build on Madiba's legacy, we should reflect on how the principles that Madiba espoused and relentlessly pursued can shape our own moral framework and guide our actions. For Nelson Mandela, morality was not theoretical. It was very practical. It is the means by which people could improve their condition. It is the means by which we could change the world. Morality provided a touchstone by which one could measure one's actions and guide one's decisions. Our struggle, amongst many other struggles, is also a moral struggle. If we are to build on Madiba's legacy, we need both to continue the work that he began and hold true the moral posture that Madiba adopted. We should seek to pursue at all times that which is right and true and just, no matter how inconvenient, how unpopular, or how difficult. Comrades and friends, the world today is a better place thanks to the contribution of Nelson Mandela and many of his generation. It is thanks to them that today we can celebrate 20 years of freedom in peace and unity. It is thanks to them that our people have equal rights, that millions more of our people have houses, they have water, and they have electricity. It is thanks to them that there are now opportunities for young people that were unimaginable 2 decades ago. Importantly, it is thanks to people like Madiba and his generation that we have dignity and pride, confidence and hope. But the legacy that we honor this evening extends beyond the rights achieved and the lives improved. For Madiba was a person both of conviction and conscience. He understood that revolution is grounded in morality, politics bound by principle. He understood that a society such as ours, which is characterized by such enormous disparities of wealth and opportunity, is not only unsustainable, it is also morally indefensible. There is something profoundly wrong with a world in which so many have so little and so few have so much. It explains why the movement that Madiba led, the African National Congress, has consistently asserted a bias towards the poor and the working people of our country, the working class. It is why we have always sought to choose the side of the oppressed, the marginalized, and the exploited. As we work to build on Madiba's legacy, we need to constantly remind ourselves of this very important principle and approach to our transformation and our revolution. It is a principle that must guide those who control the levers of state power. It must guide those who exercise economic power as well. We cannot accept the wasteful use of public resources. We cannot accept the misuse of public resources, and we cannot accept the theft of public resources. Madiba's morality dictated that this should not and cannot be accepted. And we need to actively combat a culture that associates public office with entitlement, a culture where there is a tenuous relationship between misdemeanor and consequence. We need to consistently reinforce the precept that people do come first. That batho batla pele, people must come first. All our resources, all our energies must be devoted to serving the people, the poor, and the powerless in particular in our society. We would be foolish to believe that this is easily accomplished. Those who bear this responsibility are often faced with difficult and complex choices. Resources need to be allocated between competing social priorities. Funds provided to build roads may otherwise have been used to refurbish clinics, employ more teachers, or build more houses. Choices sometimes need to be made between jobs created, lives improved, and skills imparted. There are moments too when the law seems at odds with justice, when development appears at odds with compassion. Those who must deal with illegal land invasions, for example, must confront these very contradictions. For it is they that must make the hard choices between integrated planning and the rule of law and the prospect of families spending cold nights out in the veld. These are the moments when we must consider not just the legal consequences of our actions, but also the morality of our actions, as Madiba would have done. These are the matters about which, as a society, we need to reflect, and to reflect deeply and honestly as well. This is not just an issue for the state. It is an issue for all of us. It is also an issue for business. It is an issue for all social formations and sectors. We seek moral behavior not only amongst our public representatives and civil servants. We seek it too amongst our business leaders, professionals, workers, as well as community workers. If we are honest about our devotion to the principles that Madiba embodied and stood for, then we all need to act in a way that gives them meaning. If there is any value in the millions of rands that corporate South Africa spent in paying homage to Madiba, then business needs to embrace the implications of his message. For business has a responsibility not merely to pay tax, comply with regulations, and treat employees fairly. It has a responsibility to be an active participant in the fundamental transformation of the economy of our country. It has a moral responsibility, at least as equal in weight as those of its social partners, to confront poverty, unemployment, and inequality. These are issues that business, acting morally, needs to confront as well. Our sense of justice should be deeply offended by a society in which islands of wealth are surrounded by a sea of poverty. Each of us has a role to play in achieving a prosperous, more equitable society in which all may enjoy equal opportunity. And we are called upon to find ways in which we can play this role. Each of us has a role to play in the improvement of the lives of all South Africans, be it living conditions of migrant workers, the provision of housing and essential services to people in informal settlements, or ensuring that those who live in rural areas have the means and the opportunity to make a living of the land on which they live. Nelson Mandela sought not only the liberation of South Africa, but also a better, more just, more equitable world. He spoke out against discrimination in all forms and manifestations. He spoke out against injustice and oppression and exploitation across the world. He asked what was the value of our freedom when the people of Palestine remained under occupation, when millions still lived in slavery, when over 1 billion people in the world lived in extreme poverty, and the powerful still wage war on the powerless. Like him, we should be bound by our principles to seek the resolution of conflict, the defeat of global poverty, and end to the environmental degradation of our world, and the establishment of a more democratic system of global governance. Like him, we should not be daunted by the scale of the undertaking, nor deterred by the myriad obstacles that we will confront. It is a matter of great significance and much encouragement that Madiba was greatly respected and loved by so many people across the world. It gives us hope that his principles are equally shared by the many governments, organizations, citizens of the world that joined us in mourning his passing. It gives us confidence that there exists across the world both the will and the means to achieve meaningful progress. It gives us confidence as well that there exists the possibility that the nations of the world, especially those that are most powerful, will cast aside narrow self-interest in favor of the equal advancement of all the world's peoples. Comrades and friends, the principles that Madiba embodied find meaning both at the lofty heights of global affairs and in our day-to-day interactions with each other. It was in respecting the equal rights and dignity of all people that Madiba made his greatest contribution to our sense of worth and purpose. It must therefore be a matter of grave concern that we live in a society where respect for the rights and integrity of another is so frequently and shamelessly violated. As a society, as individuals, we cannot allow to continue the violence that is perpetrated against women and children. We must challenge the notion that women must occupy a position of lesser importance in the home, in the workplace, in the classroom, and generally in society. Madiba would never have supported that. We must encourage all sexually active South Africans, particularly the young, to respect themselves and their partners, to use condoms consistently, stick to one sexual partner, and get tested for HIV at least once a year. Many people infected with HIV still face discrimination and abuse. This is irrational and unacceptable. It is an affront to our shared humanity, and we must do all that we can to stop it, just as Madiba would have done everything he could to stop it. Though our society faces many challenges, we are confident that we have it in us to prevail. South Africans have demonstrated a tremendous capacity to overcome even the most intractable problems. When the world almost gave up on us with regards to solving the apartheid problem, we were able to rise to the challenge as the people of this country and found a workable solution under the leadership of Nelson Mandela. We have it in us to treat each other with respect and to place the needs of others above our own, just as Nelson Mandela did, to a point where he was even prepared to sacrifice his own life so that we could all be free. We have it in us to heal the divisions of the past and eradicate the inequalities of the present. We have it in us to build a future in which all may enjoy equal rights and equal opportunities. By working together, which is what Nelson Mandela taught us, by holding true to the values that Madiba embodied, by drawing inspiration from his life and his work, we will be able to properly honor his memory and complete the long walk that he began. And as he ended his book, he said, indeed, there is still a long walk ahead. And that long walk has now been left to us. His long walk is over. He has now handed the reins and the baton to all of us as South Africans. May we continue living Madiba's legacy, but more importantly, may we be imbued by the morality that Nelson Mandela has had to teach the world. Madiba, more than anything else, was known as a moral icon around the world. Let us be as moral in whatever we do as Madiba was. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy President. I thought I should just mention that I'm not so sure about the chicken story. I know that Prof said I will be under the spotlight, but I'm not so sure that that one I'll fulfill. But don't worry, there will be interviews, and as part of the interviews, you might find that someone managed to complete the story, or Madiba finished the story to them. So look out for the book, and you might find it, and I'll tell you if it's in there. But I thought also that thanks for a very powerful speech, which I was reminded, someone sent me an SMS saying, I hope the Deputy President will mention and congratulate Miss World. So we're under pressure to just recognize that woman. Remember you said women must occupy that space. So, and as you were talking, I looked at the front and I thought, oh, I think we are in trouble for having been all men. So it's time that the ANC has a deputy president who's a woman. So thanks again, Deputy President, and thanks to the ANC and its staff members, the top six, for having made this possible. I'd like to, as I ask Berita to come back, to just thank the following people for having made this last 10 days possible. The chairman and trustees of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Ms. Machel, the Mandela family. Mrs. Ndilaga, you've walked with us throughout this journey. Thank you very much. The Kathrada Foundation, the Rights Associates, Struggle Veterans and Comrades of Madiba, As the South African government, in terms of national, provincial and local government, the diplomatic corps, the city of Tshwane, the sponsors who made everything we asked for possible. And I'd really be making a big mistake if I don't mention Cricket South Africa and the South African Rugby Union. Vodacom, Edcon, Telkom, Avaz, the SABC, KFM, Brand South Africa, Momentum, Carolyn and Dostane, Bikers for Mandela Day, Cotton On Foundation, the Book People, Crown Plaza Rosebank, and again, just the staff of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Without their work, these last 10 days would have been impossible to achieve. So I'd like to thank each and every one of them. I'd like to now thank all of you for coming. I know that those who are outside are still very angry that they couldn't make it inside, but I need to tell you this story, that when we organized for today, we had a couple of calls saying, how can you organize this thing on the 15th? Don't you know that tomorrow is a public holiday? It's the 16th. You're going to have 4 people, I bet you. So I'm sorry to say that you are 4 people as we speak. So, and I hope that all 4 of you are happy to be here. And to the people outside, we value you and we apologize again that you couldn't make it inside. I'd like to, as I end off, just to say that we appreciate everything that the Deputy President said, and I'd like to just say that he reminded us that we need to continue walking and working even as we are tired. We need to continue dreaming and keep on dreaming even when we want those dreams to stop. That it is in our hands to always remember what Madiba said, that one question that should bother all of us every day as we wake up: what am I doing to help build a country of our dreams? So may we continue to help build that country. With those words, I'd like to thank you all and ask Berita to do what she does best.